Salute, 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 good people. We're in the building. Another self talk moment is now coming to you live. I'm your host, Dr. Kareem Paranda. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor and a licensed clinical addiction specialist, which means I can help people who suffer from various chemical addictions and or addictions in general, gambling, pornography, things like that. I'm also a specialist in treating trauma. I'm a trauma focused CBT clinician. So that means I could work with youth up to the ages 18 who are struggling with trauma, who have been impacted by trauma, and even adults. I've worked with a lot of adults over that age who have been impacted by trauma in various forms, whether it be veterans coming home from wars, first responders who always respond to some of the most craziest stuff here in civilian world, and people who've just been traumatized by either their addiction in drugs or um, unfortunate events that may have taken place in someone's life. Also, I have a background in law enforcement. I was a police officer for 8 years before I transitioned into this line of work. And my biggest motivation is to focus on prevention instead of punishment. I was a punisher. I ain't gonna front. I was a bit different. I was wired a bit differently back in the day when I was a police officer and before that, and went through some transformational experiences to help me sort of kind of come into contact with the person I desired to become. And so, a little bit more on my journey later on, but I want to get to the topic at hand tonight regarding, the subject. You know, how long can someone fake happy, if you will? And this is a topic based upon depression, a topic based upon appearing as if all is well when it's really not. A topic that explores stoicism, which is something that's definitely huge in first responders profession, such as law enforcement. And one of the biggest inspirations for tonight's podcast or tonight's talk is the fact that today another police officer completed suicide. And man, that hurts my heart to no end, right? Because the notion that police officers are losing their lives at a faster pace to self-inflicted injuries that he that result into completed suicide than in the line of duty deaths. And again, what do you think's fueling that? What do you think's responsible for uh, that that outcome? What's causing police officers, veterans, firefighters? I'm not sure about the statistics on EMT workers, but what's causing these folks to complete suicide at a pace that is greater than any kind of job related event? You know, um, bear with me, right? Because again, this stuff bothers me. I feel like this condition or issue is avoidable, and evidently, not enough is being done to avoid it. Um, and so, what I want to do is just create a dialogue or an engagement, transparent discussion on how this happens. And I want to be able to entertain audience questions as well. Give me 1 second. Let me just post to my other platforms, get folks to come on in. All right. so, so this is the my attempt at educating those who come across this podcast or come across this live stream, educating you on some of the challenges that I know exist in law enforcement that the public may not be privy to. And I was contacted today by a local news media to talk about this incident that was originally word of mouth. that wasn't confirmed at the time when I was contacted to speak on this topic, and I declined it. And one of the main reasons why I declined speaking to the news about what I believe the challenges are regarding law enforcement suicide is because every time I've spoken to the news transparently, authentically, and truthfully based upon my personal experiences and also the research, it always gets filtered out, watered down, or it's not politically correct enough to align with the narrative that they'd rather share with you than the truth. One of the things I've learned about therapy, or well, I should say, one of the things I've learned from therapy is that the only people who struggle with the truth are those individuals who prefer to believe a lie. And sometimes the lie is also an omission of the truth. As long as I don't tell you what it is, I can't lie to you. But omission is technically still being deceitful. And, one of the things about the outward appearance, obviously, we can't judge a book by the cover, right? And we talk about that in the context of someone's capabilities, uh, be it in a fight, athleticism, or intelligence, some type of talent, whatever it might be. We always say we can't judge the book by the cover. Well, we also can't judge the book by the cover when it comes to someone who is struggling in silence with some type of mental health condition. I dare not to say it a disorder, but if we're going to call it a disorder, we're going to say that it's lacking order in thoughts, lacking order in feelings, understanding what they're feeling, and not knowing how to manage it. It, in fact, manages them instead of them being able to manage it. And that's a byproduct of underdeveloped skill sets born out of a childhood that may have also been hampered or obstructed or hindered in some way by trauma, various levels of trauma. Now, you know, trauma is trauma, right? It's sort of kind of like a lie is a lie, no matter how big or small the lie is, it's a lie still. And trauma works the same way. I don't have to go see combat, active combat to be traumatized. That's trauma, without a doubt, active combat. But being yelled at, getting slapped, getting popped, being disciplined in some way, shape, or form that's harsh for my soul would be traumatizing. Some types of discipline that children receive can crush the spirit of that child. And then that ends up becoming something that a condition that creates a deficit, which that child will operate in when they become an adult. They will make decisions from that deficit. The deficit is also a form of ignorance. It's like not knowing what to do or not knowing that certain things can be done. And you don't know because your trauma gets in the way or the emotional wounds, the injuries that you might have sustained in your childhood get in the way of you being progressive and productive. And so many people hide behind their defense mechanism. We're going to call the defense mechanism the ego. They develop an ego to keep themselves safe. Now, think about what I just said. They develop the ego to keep themselves safe. The ego, which is what they develop, is designed to keep themselves safe. So the individual, hear me very carefully because I'm getting ready to give you some gems. The individual is being protected by this mask, this costume that they're wearing, which serves as who they want you to believe that they are. So this person is essentially born to manage one individual, ends up managing at least two or more individuals. And we're talking about, when I say individuals, obviously you only have one body, but we're talking about management of presentation, persona, personalities, whatever it might be. And they've got different types of disorders, dissociative personality disorders. It ranges it's up under the umbrella of personality disorder. But here's the thing: the management of a multitude or multiple personalities is exhausting. to appear as if I'm the nice guy, to act like I'm the nice guy, or to act as if everything is okay, the management of that is extremely exhausting. How long can a person fake happy? Now, I'll tell you transparently, they can't say this. Police officers can't say this, but shit, I can say it. So I'm no longer bound to the profession. I'm no longer concerned that I might lose my job. I might get reprimanded if I say what the problem is. You better believe police officers, from the admin down to the frontline worker, all wear a mask that they have to manage day in, day out while they have that uniform on. Very seldom can a police officer truly be themselves because who they are under the uniform may not align with what everybody perceives of the uniform. So police officers will get scrutinized for not being professional enough if they're being themselves. And so think about that, right? If you're going to get scrutinized for not being professional enough because you spoke a certain way, or you handled a call or engaged with a citizen in a certain way that someone might deem, oh no, that's not what police officers do, then that judgment creates shame for an individual who may not have the confidence to overcome that shame with being totally reliant upon who they are. So what do? They put themselves away and put on this professional persona for the 12-hour shift each day that they work, on every rotation, whatever it might be, so that they can get through the job on a daily basis. And you know what happens at the end of that day? That police officer is pissed the fuck off because I'm tired of this damn mask. And so what happens is when they go home, all they want to do is recover, catch their breath from the exhaustion of having to play or appear as if they are the nice guy. But really, some of them, man, probably are wired to whoop ass, take names tomorrow, but they can't show that side because it doesn't look professional. It's not what the profession is all about. And that has a profound impact on one's mental health. You go a level higher in the profession, especially at the top. We're talking about the chiefs, the majors, the deputy chiefs, and all those folks who wear different colored shirts from the rest of their from the rest of their folks. Um, they wear the mask too. I like to say all of them are full of shit. They got to wear the mask too. Now, I talk about this in my book, Breaking the Code of Silence: A Cop's Journey to Triumph and Truth. And I talk about how, one has to manage their persona and their perception. And then when everybody around you is appearing as if they're not bothered by what's going on in the department, primarily, and in the community, and what's going on in this country surrounding law enforcement's reputation, um, if everybody's acting like it's no big deal, then guess what? If it bothers you, you better act like it's no big deal too. Or you suffer the wrath of being judged as inadequate or unfit for duty because you just can't handle the social, emotional pressures of this job. And guess what? We're going to have to take you off the street for a little bit. We're going to have to take your badge and your gun. And any police officer who's invested in this identity because it connects them to worth or some type of value, such as financial security, physical security, this mental security, that's devastating to be rendered unfit for duty. And so you're gonna try like heck to act as if you're good, even when you're not. And again, the management of this, I call it a tug of war. is what's contributing to the problems that we see manifesting in suicidal ideation and suicide completion. And it's not just law enforcement, it's in the community too. Those who contemplate suicide are in pain, they're in emotional and mental pain, and they don't know how to navigate it. What I have found in research and even in my personal experiences is that people who overcome the thought process of suicidal ideation usually have a good support system, someone that they can talk to about the stuff that's going on inside of them. There's more they say about gas, right? There's more air out here than there is inside of you. Letting that stuff out, releasing it is helpful to the nervous system that can only take but so much weight of the world. Having a conversation with someone you trust is extremely helpful. But if you have no one to trust, fuck this shit. I'm out of here. It's easy to complete suicide when you have no one to go, nowhere to go, or no one to talk to. If you have no connection, if you feel like you screwed up all these connections because hell, you were operating at a deficit from childhood and you faked it till you made it. You've done well with all the tasks and completing all the assignments and all the accolades and the awards and all these achievements, but it doesn't fix the relationship you're supposed to have between your mind and your heart. And there's your tug of war. The appearance of looking adequate, even though you know you're not as adequate as you may appear. And then when people add more judgment upon you or impress upon your consciousness that there's a fear of judgment, you now hypervigilantly in a survival mode mindset, you manage this facade or this appearance as if everything's okay when it's really not. And you just begin to erode away internally. And that stuff, it hurts having to suffer in silence. Oh, man. I empathize with the law enforcement community. I empathize with the family. And, sometimes, first responders have, because they have such a tough job, they don't have the best relationships with their families. It's not true for all, but it's definitely true for some. They don't have the best relationships. It's hard for them to manage relationships because of the emotional disconnect that they have to operate in order just to get through day to day 12-hour shifts. Shit's tough, man. I know it because I lived it. I was a police officer for 8 years and I was a fraud managing this nice guy persona when, man, I'm a grunt. I'm a person. I'm a juggernaut. Hey, listen, I want to get the bad guy. Bump all this talking and nice person bullshit. Where the problem at? Let me solve it. And obviously, that mentality, man, didn't last me long in my career, right? If you do your history on me, yeah, I experienced lawsuits and use of forces that led to two indictments that I'm not proud of now that I know what I know. But back then, I didn't have any clue why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And I believe many police officers today, because of the fear of being ostracized or being labeled as unfit for duty, they sit on this condition. They sit in silence with this emotional wound that they don't know how to articulate. And so it's best to just be quiet because you don't want to look like a fool or sound like a fool trying to explain something you don't know how to explain. That's what I did. And it came out in unproductive ways. People talk about the badge being honorable and noble and integrity and all this other shit. But the reality is, man, that's a perception that has been influenced or impressed upon us. Human beings who are imperfect wear the badge. and move throughout our society day to day. For the badge and the uniform itself was born out of slave catching. What was the code or what was the honor and integrity in that? And granted, I ain't trying to make this no history lesson, but I'm just saying. And so, especially as a black man or anyone that's a minority, women included, working in the profession of law enforcement, you better believe they must adopt a persona that aligns with the perspective of the dominant culture, which most would say is the white male perspective or the European male perspective. And if you don't align with that, you're not deemed safe. And so you'll see people who act as if in alignment with the dominant cultural perspective of the profession when it's not really who they are. They're just managing another persona, and it's not truly who they are. This is what leads to law enforcement suicidal ideation. The people that persevere and make it through it, who, whether they realize it or not, man, are developing resilience. And in some cases, this resilience that they're developing may be unhealthy. There are unhealthy forms of resilience, like where I just learned to emotionally detach and not give two F's about what what's going on, right? They just know how to detach really well. And that could be a good and a bad thing depending upon the context of their life, their quality of life. If someone doesn't want to be in a relationship, who's to say that, man, something must be wrong? If they don't want to be in a relationship, they don't want to be in a relationship. But what I can tell you is that when you practice emotional detachment for any period of time, you get good at it, and then it bleeds over into your relationship, which complicates connectivity. Emotional detachment is what gets you from call to call in law enforcement, especially if these calls are back to back traumatic. Whether you've seen a decapitation, some type of domestic violence or intimate partner violence situation that's really bad, where blood was shed, or someone died, or it happened in front of kids, or it happened to the kids, or it happened to someone who's vulnerable. Um, Seeing a decapitated body, a decaying body, uh, having someone spit at you, having someone assault you as the police officer, having to get into a fight with someone that you didn't want to really fight, but had to do it, killing someone that you perhaps didn't want to have to kill, killing someone accidentally, killing someone in a way that you regret. All this stuff, man, all this stuff, you have to emotionally detach if you desire to get to the next call, or make it to the next day, or make it, hell, make it to retirement. And then in some of these cases, man, shit, you'll make it to retirement by the skin of your teeth, or in bad shape. You cross the finish line crawling, not running. And hell, didn't even get your whole body across. You just was able to get your hand or your fingertips across the finish line and passed out right there. For some, I tell you, making it to retirement is a formula in the first responders world. You have to govern yourself a certain way, and sometimes that governing of self, or that management of self, conflicts with who you truly are. And some of us don't like. It's not that we don't like who we are. We just don't like who we were, or who we had to protect from the forces and powers that be. Oftentimes, especially in our childhood, if we were made fun of, the judgment piece, right? Because we didn't have the clothing, or we may have, as in our maturity or evolution, we may have looked weird. We were heavy, we were skinny, by other people's opinion. By the way, not our own opinion, because we didn't have an opinion until someone said something about us. Then we started to develop an opinion or a complex or an inner critic, right? So we were cool until someone started pointing out something that they thought was a flaw. And then now what do? We try our best to cover it up. We try our best to distract others from witnessing that flaw, right? And we put ourselves through a process that we didn't originally sign up for. We didn't really want to go through this process, but we have to for the sake of survival, for the sake of avoiding being targeted or picked on or attacked, whatever it might be. We put ourselves through this process, through a process to protect ourselves from the threats in the environment. And that's where it starts. This tendency to dislike self or be ashamed of self and commit to the ego who we put out on Front Street for people to believe is a byproduct of self hatred, insecurity. There's no security in that process. And as a result, we are extremely vulnerable, regardless of how fortified that ego is and how it looks presentable to the world. We are still highly insecure, lacking security, lacking the integrity and security in who we are. And the only time we believe that we can be validated is if somebody gives us the approval. If someone checks the box and says, "Yep, give me a thumbs up." Hey, because my ego is representing, and if you give me a thumbs up on my ego, then guess what? I'm going to commit to this thing because it's working. So I think until it doesn't work anymore. And usually it doesn't work anymore. We can tell that it's not working anymore when things around us start to cave in and fall and collapse. Here comes suicide. Since this didn't work, well then heck, this is gonna work, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. So people call it selfish, but it's an individual's attempt at trying to find relief because the relief, the options for relief were not available in their ecosystem. These damn administrators and shit can talk all that nonsense they want about. Just ask for help. Go find a mental health therapist and seek help. You don't have to complete suicide. I call bullshit because again, like I said earlier, if you don't act like you can manage the job, your fitness for duty will be questioned. I'm telling you what I know. They're not going to tell you that, but this is a fact. The integrity of your ability to manage the job and the stresses that come with it will be questioned, not only by the administration, but also by your peers who have the mask on too. They just happy that it ain't them getting pointed out. And here's another reality, man. I could talk about this shit all day, but I'm not going to. Coming up on 30 minutes, I plan to keep all my talks to about 30 minutes. Everybody's not built to do law enforcement, and everybody gets into it for a different reason. Burnout, which is something that I had, I just didn't know what it was called when I was when I was in the profession, usually occurs around year 3. Around year 3 to 5, that's when burnout kicks in. And all it is, it's connected to stress. And my definition of burnout is having unmet expectations. It could have been the expectation of I wish I could be myself, but I can't. I wish things went a certain way, but they're not going. I wish they would do something different, but they won't. All of those kind of requests or ideas stack and create burnout. And then guess what? With all that stress built up and that disappointment built up, you just get to a point where you're looking for somebody to fuck up. And when I say fuck up, I'm not talking about for them to mess up. Well, maybe if you're in the admin role, you're looking for somebody to mess up so you can make an example. 'Cause some of them get off on that too. The ones that are in the upper brass, lieutenants and above type deal. In most cases, not all. Some lieutenants are cool. Some chiefs are cool, and but not all. Not all. Um, but when I say fuck, I'm talking about knuckle up, giving somebody a dang on knuckle sandwich, and that's just real. Some of the folks that wear the uniform in law enforcement and the military, they enjoy violence. The profession is violent. You're dealing with people who don't want to go to jail. Everybody's in survival mode. Fight, flight, freeze. And when it comes down to a situation where force has to be used, may the best man or woman win. And I'm gonna tell you, they train you in the academy and law enforcement to make sure you go home the same way you came in. So, if that tells you anything, police officers are not trained to retreat. They're trained to make sure that whatever their objectives are in the moment, that they are going to be fulfilled. Complete the mission. And if I can't do it by myself, I'm just going to radio somebody to assist. That's how it works. And so, yeah, they got this narrative about guardian versus warrior and all this other terms and all that jazz. I don't get into all that. I'm not politically correct. Again, I'm a firm believer that the only people that struggle with the truth are those who prefer to believe a lie. And some people don't like my straightforwardness, my assertiveness when it comes to this, especially as a black man. How dare he talk about us or this profession in that way? I did a presentation some time ago. I'm getting ready to get off here, but I'm going to wet your palate with this. I did a presentation some about 2 years ago on how to spot a troubled officers. I'm sorry, how to spot a troubled officer to administrative personnel within the law enforcement profession, and they did not like what I had to say. At least that's the theory or that's the belief, because my narrative is not consistent with the facade. My narrative was designed to educate that in a way promotes change that can avoid the stuff that I got on here talking about earlier regarding that officer completing suicide via a self inflicted injury, a self inflicted wound. It can be avoided, but it's not going to be avoided until the culture changes or until this message gets out. It's going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening until these administrators recognize that the makeup that they wearing looks and smells like shit. That's when we'll see the numbers of suicidal ideation and completed suicides go down within the law enforcement profession. This stuff pisses me off, man, because it's like this stuff can be avoided and it's unacceptable. So if I can do anything to support you, sir or ma'am, officer, firefighter, EMT, anyone in the community that's suffering in silence, reach out to me. I specialize in this. You can contact me at Self Talk Counseling and Consulting or www.selftalkcounseling.com. Me and my staff are all trained on learning how to work with people who are suffering in silence. And we're here to help. We're not in alignment with any governmental entity. We're here to provide solutions, real solutions for real people who are suffering in silence and are in fear that their livelihood that they've worked hard to achieve will be taken from them if they're found out. My goal is always to help people in law enforcement, especially to remain fit for duty. That's my goal. That's my passion. Ever since I left law enforcement, that's what I've been on. How do I help other police officers who suffered in silence like I did avoid contemplating suicide or having homicidal ideation? I created an online curriculum called Patrolling Your Purpose. You can access that through the website www.patrollingyyourpurpose.com. www.pirandasolutions.com. And I'll leave it all in the chat here. You can access that website. It's a online self-help, self-paced course that will teach you all the developmental milestones you might have missed that now cause you to fumble or not manage life on life terms. It's a year-long course. It's a subscription base. Hell, if you reach out to me directly, I'll give you a discount on the course. So I provide solutions to this problem that you can take advantage of without anybody having to know from the comfort of your own home. Whether you need therapy, individual, family therapy, or you want something where you can work at your own pace, independent, online, at home, we got you. We got you. And understand all of this was created by somebody who's been where you've been. I provide trainings to departments. If you're an administrator and you desire to have mental health trainings for your police officers or your deputies or your personnel, Piranda Solutions is the way. I provide trainings, I provide workshops, and things that will help our frontline remain fit for duty. But man, one of the important things, man, when it comes to you folks who are making the decisions, I don't care, city council, whoever, you cannot be afraid of the truth, of confronting the truth so that adequate and accurate help can be rendered. Otherwise, we're going to keep seeing this trend continue, and it's bullshit. So if you're an officer suffering in silence, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself at www.selftalkcounseling.com or www.pirandasolutions.com. We're here to help, so reach out. Until then, folks, this has been another self-talk moment from Dr. Piranda, and I'm wishing you all the best. I pray that you remain safe from seen and unseen dangers, and I pray that you also be the hero that you may have been waiting on. I pray that you will be the validator for yourself and not need anybody outside of you to do that for you, what you can do for yourself. I hope that makes sense. I got a little tongue tied there. But yo, much love, man. And I'll be praying for everybody who's been impacted by law enforcement death or just death in general. Death is never an easy thing to manage. Everyone that's left behind grieves, and grief again. That's just a whole nother topic. But um, I just encourage you all to be strong and know that tomorrow does get better. Just don't quit before the miracle happens. All right. Till next time, take care. This has been another self talk moment. Dr. P signing off.